She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
You want to know what happens to an eyeball when it gets punctured? You got any idea how much blood jets out of a guy's neck when his throat's been slit?
Do you know what the most frightening thing in the world is? It's fear.
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
Sink into the floor.
Wait.
Sink.
Mom, it's a terrible thing to waste.
Hey, welcome back to the J&Z podcast. It's episode 20
I cannot believe it.
of
Episode
season
20.
2.
Season 2. We took the entire summer off.
We did, yeah. What did you do
little
this summer?
sun.
Yeah, what did you do this summer?
Spent it watching movies. Didn't go outside. I'm an old wino.
Loser.
I know, right?
I did the same exact thing.
That's good. That's why we're doing a movie podcast.
We are in a different set,
Yes, we are.
different location.
I
We
like it.
we got kicked out by the IRS because we don't pay our taxes.
They
so
threw us out. They
yeah.
Jazzy Jeff threw us out.
yeah, so we're in an undisclosed location. So hopefully we can get through season 2 before we get caught again.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get caught. Please don't tell the whereabouts of 555-932.
So we kicked off season 2 because today is October 1st
Yep.
of the Halloween season.
Which I want to know because Jared, I want to know what your stance is on horror films because this
Okay.
October we are doing all horror movies.
Yeah.
If you've seen our promo, you'll definitely know. So check that out. But I want to know Jared's stance on horror movies before we really get going.
Yeah, I would say I like horror movies as much as being eaten alive by rats.
Oh God,
I would say
awful.
though, like if someone was like, "Do you want to watch a horror movie, or do you want me to drop you into a vat full of rats with barbecue sauce on your skin?" Obviously, I would watch a horror movie, but I would think about
You
it.
have to actually think about it.
I would be like, "What's the horror movie?" Okay, I'll watch a horror movie. But so a couple things. I'm not a fan of being scared. I
Sure.
never understood why people like to be scared. I thought that was like a really weird thing. Like, why do you like horror movies? I like being scared all the time. Like, but that's not, I feel like, what it's about.
Yeah.
But when I get scared or uneasy, I just get angry. And so whenever I watch horror movies, I'm just mad the whole time.
Mad for 2.5 hours.
Right, exactly. And so, I don't know. And I've never just really had the desire, like, and I've obviously not looked into it a ton because it's not something I regularly enjoy.
No.
And so I just like, it was hard for me to get associated with like a franchise like Halloween or the Scream movies because it was like, that's kind of a cool concept. Oh, there's blood. Oh, it's scary. No.
Right? And
No.
it's like, oh, I can watch it during the day, but oh, it's not that scary during the day. Wait a second, it's night and my entire house is dark. I can't watch it because it's scary.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, better watch SpongeBob again.
Right? Exactly. So for this month, we're doing horror movies. And Jared, you're not the biggest fan of horror movies.
No, definitely not.
It's my favorite genre. Like, I love
Yeah.
horror movies.
Well, before we get into the movie for today, I'm going to share a short story about Czar because normally if we have a guest on, I like to do a short story about them. So Czar and I used to live together. Worst fucking years of my life.
Awful.
I'm just
Awful,
kidding. It was
awful.
great.
0 out of 10.
But Czar does love horror movies, and I do not like horror movies. And so as two guys that love movies, it's a hard contrast, right? And so I think it was probably like October, November time of year. Like,
2016.
yeah, it was definitely dark outside. And I got home from work, and Czar was watching The Exorcist on the couch. Now, if you're not familiar with The Exorcist, and I also have not seen it,
Watch it with your family. It's really family friendly.
terrifying.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis.
And I just like, oh, okay, no, it's okay. I'll let you get into the living room. I'm going to go to my room, blah, blah, blah. So I go to my room and I just hang out in there, like, change out my work clothes, all that stuff. And I don't know, probably like a half an hour, 45 minutes have passed. I'm like, I'm going to go out to the living room now because the movie should be over, or close to being over. And I walk out and it's just like a terrifying demon possession scene.
Oh, yeah.
But I hear this like coming from the living room. I'm like, what is that coming from the movie? And I look out and Czar fell asleep to The Exorcist.
I did.
So I called the cops on him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
And I had him put into a home.
It was my first arrest. I was really excited about it. No, because I remember this because I woke up during the possession scene near the end of The Exorcist. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And I was like, oh, this is the fun part. This is the part where she like levitates and they go, the power of Christ compels you. But at least we're not doing that for this month. We're not doing The Exorcist this
thank
month.
God. Yeah. Well, so getting into the movie for this week, Czar thought an easy segue into it, which also I actually, if there's any horror movie I've been interested in seeing, it was Get Out. And that's what we clipped earlier in the podcast, was a clip from that movie. What I will say is, if you're like me, if you're not crazy into horror movies, this actually is a great one to like get into, honestly. And you have a better understanding of the definition between the two, but I don't know if I would categorize this as a horror more than I would categorize it as like a thriller.
It's a thriller. I think that it's a thriller. For a lot of people, like, they think that horror is jump scares. Like, just that's because that's a lot of what you just see is it's just like, oh, well, it's a horror movie. Well, exactly. But with Get Out, there's not really any jump scares.
No, I can maybe think of one jump scare, and it wasn't even really a jump scare. It was like a thriller, like it was more an extended side. And we're going to jump around a lot of the movie, but it's the
spoiler
scene.
alert, by the way. We are going to talk about spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend
Definitely
it.
go watch it. But yeah, the one scene that I would say, maybe actually let's put a pin in this because there's a lot that's connected to this one scene. So let me take a step back. So you say it's a thriller. So describe, like, how would you categorize something, like what would make it a horror movie? So not just jump scares, but like what else?
Well, I would say, like, obviously there could be blood. Blood would definitely make it more of a horror film because
like gore.
Gore would push it into the horror film category. Possibly jump scares. I think that maybe jump scares would turn it more into a horror film. For me, though, this movie is like, it's such a tight script that it's like, I mean, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, that's a horror movie. I think, like, it's because Jordan Peele talked about this, where one of his inspirations for this movie was Silence of the Lambs during some of the meditation scenes. And Silence of the Lambs, it's a horror movie, but it won Academy Awards because they said it was a drama or a thriller. So it's just it's kind of interesting because it's like, you know, someone could be like, oh, well, this is a thriller movie. It's like, well, thriller and horror, they kind of go hand in hand. It's just that for a lot of thrillers, unfortunately, you see them on like the Lifetime channel or like the wrong roommate or the wrong cousin.
Yeah, I've also heard like subcategories of horror movies, like slasher films.
Yes,
like that's a subcategory. I feel like of horror movies, which feels a lot like gore and murder and stuff like that.
Yes,
but for me, like I said, I would categorize this as a thriller because it was like, I wasn't necessarily jump scared as I was more just like constantly on edge.
Right.
Of like what is going on. And it goes to what you said of the script being really tight.
It won an Academy Award for Best Script.
Oh yeah, I'm not shocked. Because the thing too is it's like, you and I have talked about this before in season 1, that what makes a good movie for me personally is like, did I ever look at the time? Did I ever like, okay, this movie's gone.
What's happening on Facebook?
And even if there's certain things in the movie that are like, they feel kind of obvious. If the movie is moving, you don't have time to even think about like what's maybe gonna happen. You're just like, what is gonna happen? Like you're just so into it.
Right. And it was fun watching it with you because this was the first time that you've ever seen it. I saw it when it came out in 2017 because it was a new type of horror movie. Like a lot of cycles, you'll just get you'll get like ghost movies or whatever. And this one was Jordan Peele. So it was like a comedian making a horror movie. It was interesting. So I was really excited to watch Get Out with you because, you know, I told you, I was like, it's not what you would think as a horror movie.
You undersold it definitely more because you're like, it's not scary at all. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal.
It's literally like the SpongeBob Halloween episode. Like, don't worry.
Have you seen Scooby-Doo? It's basically the same thing.
It's Zombie Island. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of going through the movie, there's so much about the movie I want to talk about.
Right.
The initial thing for me that really had like the hook, and that's a big thing for me, is like the draw of like really getting invested with the movie.
Yeah. Is
almost at the beginning, I was like, something's really off. Like something is really, really off. So like the beginning scene where they're at his apartment and they're talking, even just the way his girlfriend acts and says stuff, I'm just like, you look insane.
The interesting thing about you saying about the girl is Jordan Peele actually casted her because he thought she looks like the kind of girl that you would have a crush on at summer camp, but would never talk to.
Yeah.
Like that was his aim, was he was like, I want to have this character of Rose as this girl at summer camp when you were growing up that you had a crush on, but were all like too nervous to talk to them.
Yeah. Another thing that he said, and I'm going to jump around for a second.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of symbolism in this movie.
There's a ton.
And a lot of like underlying stuff. And one of the things that I thought it was funny that Jordan Peele clarified, and I'll link this video in the description. He did a video with Vanity Fair where he jumped into a bunch of different Reddit theories. And if you ever want to get lost in time, go look at the Reddit for Get Out because there's so many fan theories.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah. So one of the things way, way later in the film is Rose is sitting on her bed and she's eating Apple Jacks or like Fruit Loops or something, but she's chewing on them and then drinking it next to a glass of milk.
They're both separated.
Yeah, and so that was one of the fan theories, is that she wasn't mixing the colors of the Fruit Loops with the white milk. Like that was a big thing. And in the Vanity Fair interview, Jordan Peele's like, "Oh yeah, that's super cool. That's not at all what I was going for." He's like, "I just wanted her to look like a fucking psychopath."
That's amazing. Because I totally would have thought that he like was writing that and he's like, "Oh, it's good subtext. I'm gonna put that there. Oh, that's good subtext. I'm gonna put that there." Instead of just like, I always love that with directors where you'll put some, like a director will put something and everyone's like, well, the symbolism has to do with the birth of their daughter. And they're like, no, I just left that plate out because someone in craft services forgot to pick it up.
Like his reasoning was literally, he just wanted her to look like a psycho bitch. That was his only he's like, if she was just eating cereal with milk next to it, like how crazy is she gonna look? And everyone's like, no, it has to do with like the separation of this. And he's like, no, I wanted her to look insane.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So as the movie progresses, the thing to really follow is, so like right off the bat, there's a scene that kind of makes you on edge, and it's another funny tidbit I'll mention about Jordan Peele. But so they leave the apartment, they're going to Rose's parents' house, right? So that's like where a majority of the film takes place. And when they're on their way there, they hit a deer. And it's one of the movies that I would recommend watch it again and see all of the major connections, because we'll come back to the deer and all that stuff, because there's a lot that actually comes back to the beginning of the film. But it's like, it's terrifying, right? Like in any movie where there's like a car accident,
that would be the jump scare. The deer hitting the
that was
car
definitely one.
is a jump scare.
Yeah, but it's not like a scary thing. It's more of just like, oh shit. Like, it's,
there's a reason behind it. It's not like in Community when they kept throwing black cats at him when they were walking down, and he's like, why are there so many cats here?
What is up with that cat? Is someone throwing it?
But yeah, so they like hit the deer, and then it goes off to the side, and you hear the deer dying. And fun fact, Jordan Peele voiced the dying deer. Weird thing. But it like goes and looks at it, and that scene's kind of eerie because it's like an animal's dying, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, it's like in the middle of the woods, and then the cop shows up. And this is the first time that you really see, like, I would say, elements of race and white privilege, which we'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Jordan Peele, like, really made a point about pointing out specific things that were also happening in the real world that he wanted to show through film, which is super cool. But that was the first scene, and it's funny because it's like there's elements to it. So as an example, the police officer asked, well, it's Daniel is his actor's name, but what's his name in the movie? I can't remember.
I can't remember, but we'll just call him Daniel.
Is it Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, main actor one. So the cop is with Rose and asks him for his ID, and she's like, "Well, he wasn't driving. Like, why do you need his ID?" And I think what they were trying to portray here was like how shitty cops are to people of color, basically. Right. But really, like, the sub context behind that is Rose didn't want the cop to see the connected potential missing person. Right. Yeah.
And I read a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is you have this like main bad guy in Rose, but like through the beginning and a majority of the film, you're like, oh, she's woke. She's really cool. Like
she's really supportive.
She's supportive. And then there's like a one pivotal scene, which we'll talk about, where she just fucking switches. And it's like, I hated her. I hated her.
I heard in an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, she said that during the filmmaking of it, she was single and no one would date her.
I'm not surprised.
And it's literally like Gone Girl, where the girl was like, yeah, I mean, I filmed a scene where I slept with a guy and murdered him while he was coming. Why am I single?
You will forever be single.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So my question for you, so watching it back, how did you feel going through the second time?
I picked up on certain things. Like, I really want to go into spoiler territory for a second, if that's cool.
Take it away.
Okay. So with Deer Hit, it was really interesting because, well, just because like it just
Event Deer Hit.
Deer Hit Chapter 5, but it just made me think like, oh yeah, when Daniel was talking about his mom getting hit by a car and just being on the side of the road and dying there, it was like it was like, oh, with the deer being hit and then dying on the side of the road, like because there was that shot where it was a shot of Daniel staring at the deer. Shot of the deer looking up at Daniel, and it was there for like a couple moments. And then you have in the future when the grandma character, we'll get to that, he hits her and he's sitting in his car and he's like, don't do it. Don't fucking do it. Don't do it. And the way she looks, it's almost like she looks like how the deer looks. So it was interesting watching it because there were certain things that I picked up on, other things that I knew. And I loved watching it with you, though, because you had all of these ideas that you were saying out loud when we were watching it together. You're like, wait a second, she's evil. She's evil. And I can't say anything because I'm just like, I want you to figure everything out. What I love is there were certain scenes where you would be like, oh, it's bullshit. And Daniel's like, this is fucking bullshit. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you kind of jumped around to three different parts there. So the beginning of the movie with hitting the deer, then about midway through the movie where he talks about like he's with the grandma or not, he's with a mom.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie where he's with Georgina, who's actually the grandma.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like a ton of major connections there. So the big thing for me that I would say, and let's maybe get into like the creepiest part of the movie,
like our scariest, kind of like the scariest scene for you.
Yeah. Because I don't think it was like a jump scare. There's like three I have in mind. Let's see if I can remember all three of them. So the first one is you meet Georgina and Walter, which are like they're like land or groundskeeper and then a maid basically.
But it's like they're slaves. Like I was like, okay, they're slaves.
And he like the dad even makes a point, like when Daniel gets there for the first time, he's like, I know how this looks, like a white guy with people, and he goes, but trust me, if I could have, I would have voted for Obama in a third term.
Oh God! Anytime you said it, I just
it's so cringy.
Like I can handle like saw traps without like closing my eyes. When he says that stuff, my hands went to my eyes because I was like, I can't. Oh God!
He's like, so my brother's sister's aunt's mailman was black,
and
I
had a conversation with him, so we were best friends.
I totally understand how you're feeling.
I get your pain.
But yeah, so like he mentions that, and so the three scenes for me that I would say freaked me out probably the most was, and we'll kind of explain the movie as we're working through it. So the main premise of the movie is they're basically giving people control of these other people through hypnosis. And so essentially what had happened is Walter, the groundskeeper, is now the grandpa that I'm assuming had died.
Yep.
And then they like had him take over his body. And then Georgina is the grandma that they had take over her body.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some backstory almost at the very beginning when they get to the house that their grandpa used to race in the track. Right?
Yeah, Jesse Owens beat him.
Right, yeah. And so the first scene is they're going to sleep the first night in that creepy house, and he like wakes up and he was a smoker. And there's so much that happens in this first night because he gets up, he goes outside, and the way that it was shot, I'm just so curious, like the camera that they used, because the lens didn't move at all, and it just zoomed in perfectly on Walter's face.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like full on sprinting towards Daniel, like full on sprinting.
Mm-hmm.
And like he
and
was
then
just
immediately makes a turn as soon as he's about to like hit him.
But the creepy part is it wasn't like just a quick boom, he was there. It was like he was running. Like he was running out of camera shot into focus, and then it would cut to Daniel's face of him like freaking out, back to him, and then go back and forth, and then he cut right away.
So Jordan Peele like standing in the back and he's like, no further. You got to go further.
Yeah.
Or action. And then just watching him just like run towards the camera.
Yeah. So that part, super duper creepy. The other part was actually right after that scene where the mom hypnotizes him for the first time and sends him to what they call the sunken place, which is basically where people live when their bodies are inhabited. And so that scene just in particular was really creepy because the way, like the thought process that Jordan Peele put into it is so terrifying of like, you can see what's happening, but you're not in control of your body. Yeah. It would be like if you blacked out drunk and you couldn't like control
ever.
And it was just like things were happening. And so that's the first time seeing that. That was really freaky. The other really freaky scene is when they're at the party. So they invite all of these really old white people to a literal auction. And you see, so, and let me take a step back. So the very, very start of the movie, you see this guy walking through like a suburb at night. And then
he's like trying to meet up with a girl.
Yeah, which you later find out is Rose. And what ends up happening is this car follows him.
It's crazy. You got me out here in this creepy, confusing ass suburb. Girl, so serious though. I feel like a sore thumb out here.
And gets out of the car, and this guy has this helmet on, chokes him out, puts him in the trunk, boom, get out, get started. And what you realize is at this party, that same guy is there, but acting like freaky different. Like
very formal, like the language and everything. Because
like
he goes
really
to
terrifying.
He goes to like fist bump, and the guy just shakes his fist, and it's just like, wow, it's nice to meet you. And
the main character Daniel thinks he recognizes him. So he tries to take a picture of him, but he like cringe, leaves the flash on. What an idiot.
Yeah, right? Who else has been there?
And so when he flashes him, he like has a snap back out of the sunken place, which is where he was because someone else is in his body.
Yeah.
And he like comes to and then starts screaming, "Get out." Haha, name of the movie.
Yeah.
That scene is horrifying because he like his like nose starts to bleed and he starts screaming. And then like 3 seconds later, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that because
I
the
drank
lady,
too much."
Yeah, hypnotized him again. And it's like at that moment, I'm like, dude, grab a knife and just like start cutting your way out of that house. Like, there's no way.
Just stabbing. For me,
like, I don't care who you are, where you are. If someone is screaming in my face and bleeding and yelling, "Get out," I'm not gonna go, let me ask some questions first. No, I'm jumping over the fence. I'm diving into the pool. Like, I'm doing literally everything I can to just remove myself.
Just leave. Try to swim. I don't care.
Yeah.
For me, I would say this, like, the one scene of that's really, that when I was in theaters, like, gave me chills, is when everybody, all of the people, the aristocrats, they're all talking to each other. And then Daniel goes upstairs, and they all immediately stop talking.
Yeah,
like,
that was creepy.
Like, everything else was really, like, effective, especially the first scene where Lakeith Stanfield's being pulled into the trunk of the car while that 1930s Run Rabbit Run is playing, which is about hunting.
Yeah.
Which, okay. That one's creepy, but just the scene of like everybody's talking, and then as soon as you go in the other room, everybody stops talking and just listens to you.
That's creepy.
Like, I have something where like that's a big fear of mine, is that people are like shit talking me, and I know they are, but I can't. Like, I come in the room and they're like, "Oh, hey, Czar.
Yeah.
How's it going, buddy?" And I'm like, "You were saying something. I know you were saying something."
And they go, "Calm down, crazy."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that. I think what they did a really great job with in this movie, which is probably the thing about horror movies that scares me the most, which is like the main character doesn't realize something's happening, but the audience knows that it's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like that is the element of people screaming at their TV of like, "Fucking leave. Like, there's a horrible, horrifying horror movie that Czar made me watch in middle school called The Strangers.
You've probably seen it.
It's so, don't ever watch it. There's one scene where they like go to this house. I'm not going to get into that movie.
Is Tamara home?
but she's in the kitchen and she's on the phone. I think she's talking to her mom or something.
Yeah.
And you watch one of the killers walk into the living room
And just watch her.
and just stand there.
Just
and like,
watches her.
but the crazy thing is, like, if you were in the theaters watching it for the first time, it wasn't like he was directly in shot. Like, he was kind of off
he's
to the
off.
side.
You have to look.
And then it's like, and then you realize it's like, oh fuck, he's there. And then you watch him like slowly unfocus out of shot. And that's the stuff where I'm like, okay, going to bed tonight, turn all the lights on, lock the doors, call the cops just in case. Like,
And then she turns around and he's gone.
he's gone. Yeah. So there were elements of that in this movie also. Like, another thing that freaks me out, which is a common thing in horror movies, I feel like, is where the main character is looking at something and then something shows up.
It's a POV shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like you see Daniel, the main character, he has his camera out, it's during the party, and all this weird stuff is happening with Georgina, and he sees her in like the window at the top of the house. And so he has his camera and he like focuses up towards the top of the house and he zooms in on the window, and then randomly her head just snaps.
And she looks at him.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, like moves, but it's like, fuck, stop. That's so terrifying.
The acting in this movie is amazing. Like, by everybody, it's so good, especially Georgina's character, where where he says, he's like, you know, when I'm in a room full of white people, I get nervous. And you can, like, the actress is able to emote where it's like in her eyes you see this pain, but she's smiling, and she starts crying, and she's no, just tears. Like, it's fantastic acting, like, by everybody in the movie. There's not one actor that I was like, you know, I don't know about that. Yeah,
I think, my opinion, the best character in the film was the main character's friend that watches his dog, Daniel.
Yes.
The guy who works for the TSA. Easily, like, that is... Okay,
Ronnie.
This is something I want to talk about, because I am probably one of the biggest fans of comedy. Like, I love stand-up comedians. I love comedy movies, comedy TV shows. Like, it's just something that I enjoy. I love laughing. And I always feel like there's like a heightened sense of like laughter or things like that when there's other emotions at play. So, like, as an example, do you ever get secondhand embarrassment from when someone's public speaking?
Oh, all the time.
Like, if someone's like talking in front of a group and they're like constantly out of breath and they're like, and it's like, just stop, relax.
Or if they're reading something off, or they're like, I went on vacation to California. That's what I I'm just like laughing. I'm just like,
So, but what happens is, like, you don't want the person to do bad, obviously. And so if any joke or anything that they say, it's like, it just tickles your funny bone even more. And I feel like horror movies can do that in a certain way, where it's like, you're so, like, your emotions are so heightened because you're terrified, all these things are going on. And so any small little joke is just like the funniest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And so Jordan Peele, obviously being a comedic writer, like, the jokes weren't just like throwaway jokes that he just like wanted, because like we talked about this with the Avengers movies, it has that kind of like
so that happened. Like, it's right behind me, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like that very environmental humor, which is just like obviously like put up by the scene.
Yeah.
But the script is what makes it so funny, especially the friend's character. And there's one phone call that was like I was like, this is kind of awkward and uncomfortable, but he made it so funny, where he calls Daniel's phone because he's missing now, and Rose picks it up, and he's like, my friend's like missing, has been gone for a couple of days, and she's like, oh no, he left, like, it's fine, and he starts asking like the real questions, like, well, what taxi company did he use when he left? And she's like, well, he took Uber, and he's like, well, what time did he leave? And then she like realizes he's like onto her, and she's like, let's stop messing around. Like, you know, I want you. And he's like, what? And she's like, I want you hard.
Yeah.
And he like throws the phone. He's like, crazy bitch. Like, I was trying to find my friend. Like,
and then he starts recording it. And then that's when she like says something, and he's like, oh, damn it. She knew I was recording.
Yeah. Such a great character.
That scene in particular was really, really funny. Like, he's the audience. Like, the entire movie, he's the audience, where it's like, no, don't go there. Don't go to that house. Goes to the house. Yeah, there's something weird happening. yeah, there's something weird happening.
No fucking shit, dude.
Yeah, he's like, they're going to turn you into like a sex cult. They're going to add you
Yeah.
to the sex cult. So he is the audience.
That's a great point. There's so many pivotal characters in movies and TV shows where they're the audience's eyes in. Like, I think the perfect example of that is Sam from Cheers. Like, if you ever seen the TV show Cheers, that has this plethora of just wild, crazy characters that go to this bar, and Sam is like the one normal person. So it's the audience's eyes in. It's like, if you've seen the show Community with Joel McHale, same thing. Like, he is their eyes in. Like, he's the somewhat sane person, at least in the first couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of like experience it through them. And yeah, it was a perfect example of like you screaming certain things and then him being like, why the fuck are you doing this?
It's so, oh man, just the entire movie. And it almost shifts where it's his movie for a little bit.
Like when he's investigating, yeah.
It becomes his movie and people not taking him serious. And then him taking it upon himself where he's like, no, Chris is my best friend. Like, I'm going to figure this shit out.
Yeah. So getting towards the end of the movie, this also was up there on creepy scenes, but it wasn't as creepy because you kind of in a way saw this happening. So he's like getting ready to leave because he's like, everyone here is fucking crazy. Like, I need to get the hell out of here.
Oh, this actually like might be one of my god, that actually might be like number one.
Yeah. So buckle up for me real quick. So he's going through this like Harry Potter closet upstairs and he finds this red box. And my immediate thought is, I'm like, there's a fucking head in the box. Don't open the box. There wasn't. There was no head.
No, this was scarier than I wish there was a head in the fucking box.
Yeah, and so he sees these pictures and it's all these like black people with Rose that clearly have been like brainwashed and enslaved. But the creepy part is then you see Georgina and Walter, who are clearly like taken in control of. And so right as he shuts the door, like it's a great shot because the door is blocking where Rose is standing. So the second he slams the door shut, Rose shows up. So Rose doesn't realize that he saw that. Maybe she does, but doesn't say anything. Then he goes downstairs and he's like trying to get his way to the door, trying to escape. But then the family's like kind of cornering him towards the door. Yeah. And that's when his character breaks, where he's like yelling at Rose, like, give me the keys. Where are the keys? And she's like frantically looking for them. Like she's trying to escape with him.
She's acting
because then it cuts and it shows her and she's holding the keys. And she says, you know, I can't give you these, right?
Oh God, it's that fucking switch like that. And then the look on his face of like, it's done. It's over.
Yeah. It's so terrifying.
That scene, the acting is just, it's so good in that scene by everybody.
Yeah. Cause then Jeremy, the creepy brother.
Uncomfortable. Like that guy's been in a lot of stuff, but he plays that character of just, I'm going to make you as uncomfortable as possible, but you can't call the cops because I haven't touched you.
Yeah, literally. And then like they get into a fight and then she taps her like tea glass and he passes out. But that scene in particular, that's where the movie is like, okay, everything I was thinking is now happening. Yeah. And that's terrifying.
But man, the end, like the last 30 minutes of the movie, it feels so, when Chris is able to like come up and finally be like, no, fuck this, I'm out. And he just destroys everybody. Man, like, when I was in the audience in 2017, with that moment of Rose being like, you don't think I can give you these keys? I heard people go, oh, shit. Like, we'll talk about the ending, but I heard people cheering. Like, that was the best thing about it was we all were like,
right. Well, so this is something that I asked you that we should talk about on this too, is that like, I don't know if this makes me like a bad movie critic, and I wouldn't even call myself a movie critic because I'm like, yeah, movie made me laugh. I love it. Yeah. And so one of the things that really upsets me if like the main character doesn't get the justice, or if one of the main characters dies and then the movie ends and there's not necessarily like a resolution. Like another horror movie, one of the few I can count on my hands that I saw was The Mist, which has one of like the worst movie endings in movie history. Big spoiler alert.
I really like it.
There's like a whole family full of people in this car, and these monstrous creatures are gonna like destroy them. So he kills his whole family, and then what? Like 30 seconds later,
the mist disappears, and it's the entire National Guard rolls through. So had he waited another minute, his family would have been safe.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome
shitty ending,
I think
shitty
it's an
movie.
It's such a bleak ending.
Yeah.
But it's really powerful.
Yeah. So for me, like, because the ending is so like, yes, kill everyone, get out of the house, survive. You felt like as good as you can feel after watching a horror movie because like he escaped, he lived, all the bad people died. But like for me, I was thinking, because there's a very part at the end that I want to talk about a little bit, which is he like kills everyone finally, and Walter has like a violent character switch because he like Rose is chasing him out of the house with a rifle,
right?
And he manages to escape in the car, but then they like get into a car crash, which we'll also talk about in a second with Georgina. But he crawls out of the car. Walter tackles him.
Yeah,
He's getting
she
ready
goes,
to like
get him, Grandpa, and just
yeah, yeah. And then he flashes him, and he then, once he like realizes what's going on with his body, he shoots Rose, and then instantly unalives himself, basically. And then like all this stuff happened, like it's done. Rose is dead. Bad guys are dead. House is on fire. And like this was such like an intense scene because then you see police lights.
Oh, the audience
going off.
When I was in the audience, that was a moment where like you could feel the air just deflate, and people just went, "Oh no!"
Yeah, and it was like,
I mean, how does it look like?
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of the things where it's like, in any type of situation, like all you're hoping for is the cops show up, kill everyone, and everything's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like the second you see them, it's like they're gonna kill him. They're literally gonna shoot him
It's
like a
done.
billion times. But, and this is where we should talk about the commentary and the alternate ending, is what was written theatrically that got played in theaters, if you've seen the movie, is his friend shows up and saves his life and has the best line in the whole movie, where he's like, "How did you know I was here?"
How you find me? I'm TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. That's what we do.
So good.
My God, it's
So good.
And that's the last line of the movie.
It is. Yeah, it's an amazing line. And they like drive off, totally fine. Bad guys died. Everyone lives. But in the alternate ending, it's not his friend. It's actual police officers, and they arrest him on murder charges. And the movie ends with the main character, Daniel, talking to his friend in prison.
Yep.
And in the commentary, Jordan Peele had this like really amazing thought of basically, because he saved Georgina's life and put her in the car, in his way, that was him like making amends with not saving his mother's life, which is what he could have. So he was like, although he is imprisoned, his soul was set free in that experience.
Right.
It's like, wow, that's really impactful. But for me, I was like, damn, if that movie ended that way and he was in prison, to me, I'm like, that's really impactful. Really shitty he's in prison. And so it's like, I personally really like the ending that they went with. And Jordan Peele, his reasoning was like, at what was happening in America during that time, he's like, they really needed a hero. Like they needed a hero in the story, not just another bleak ending.
Right. Completely. What I really thought was interesting hearing about Jordan Peele and a lot of that is the person that plays Daniel, or Daniel in real life. That scene where he has to cry talking about his mom.
Oh, yeah.
They had him do that like 7 times. And by the 7th time, they immediately gave him the gig. Because they're like, dude, we're not going to find anyone that can just literally make one tear go down their face.
It's so intense, too, because it's like, what was creepy is she asks him questions almost like she's his therapist. And she's like digging into his mom's death. Like, not, if you've ever done therapy before, like, the reason why you have such intense memories about that, because like if you go through something traumatic as an adult, typically people are going to have like emotional skills to handle those things, where when you're a kid you don't have that stuff. And so that's why like memories get suppressed. You have like this stuff, and so like therapists like really help uncover that and then like help them. Where she was like, I'm going to uncover this and then just make you live there.
And it was against his will, which was really hard, because he's like pulling at the chair. He's like, I want to get out of the chair, but I'm reliving all this. Like her being like, do you hear the rain? And it, like just the look on his face where he's like, I can hear it, is just...
It's like, oh, she got him.
They needed that ending. Like it needed to end where there was some form of relief. Because like if it was just all like, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. Like if it was all of that, like that's no one's gonna walk out of the theater and be like, dude, you should totally watch this really depressing movie I saw called Get Out.
Yeah, true. So, towards the end now, what I want to talk about is rating the movie on a scale of 1 to 10.
Gotcha.
So for me, it's going to be interesting this month because I'm not a huge horror fan. And so I'm going to be like 4, 3, 0, 3, 0.
What if you actually like some of them though? That's something I was thinking about.
How possible?
I was doing the dishes and I was like, what if I turn you into a believer?
Well, so here's the thing. I see horror movies, like let's say it's an exceptional story, and I'm going to use another movie example. If you've seen Boys in the Hood, phenomenal movie.
100%.
Like almost a 10 out of 10. I can't watch that movie on repeat. You know what I mean? Like I can't watch Ricky be gunned down in that alleyway day after day and go, oh, what a great movie. Like,
yeah.
Get Out's the same way. I can respect how amazing of a film Get Out is, but it's not like, oh, I have a fever and I'm staying home from work because I'm sick. Put on Get Out.
That's
like,
true. That's a good point.
That's where I feel like I differ with horror fans, is it's not something that I find comfort in like watching. But I'm going to rate on the same sort of typical scale where it's like engagement, how impactful was it? Did the movie move? How was the script? Things like that. So for me, thinking about a scale of 1 to 10, I honestly would probably give this movie like probably 7 or 8.
That's pretty good.
I would say, because there's so many. I really like a movie that makes me think hard.
Yeah.
And this movie, like, I don't even think I've thought about everything because I could watch it again and pick up more stuff. And,
100%.
And this is a funny line to connect, but Dumb and Dumber is very similar.
Right.
You watch it again, there's just so much built into the script that it's like, it's almost like you can't take it all in one viewing. And then the other big thing that makes it a higher score is it just moved.
Right.
Like there was never a point in time where I was like, oh, I'm ready to be done. Like it was just constantly moving.
So because of this movie, does it make you want to watch other horror movies? To see if you get the same reaction?
It's tricky because like I said, I wouldn't call this a horror movie.
Okay. A thriller? Like, does it make you want to watch other thrillers? Like,
yeah, and that's it. Like I can appreciate thrillers. Like thrillers isn't something that I feel like I have the same feelings about horror movies. Like horror movies like Saw or the Scream franchise or the Halloween franchise, those are horror movies.
Right.
I feel like. And so I don't like, I feel like I just like touch my toe on the water. I'm like, ooh, that was spooky. And now it's like, okay, the next movie we're going to watch is Saw 19.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Wanna
and
play
so
a game.
yeah, I can appreciate thrillers. What I really liked about this movie is there wasn't like an obscene or like just ridiculous amount of jump scares. So if you're someone that doesn't like that either, this movie is totally doable.
There's also a website I want to recommend called Where's the Jump? And it tells you where the jump scare is and how many jump scares are in a movie. So it can kind of like prepare you for that. There's also a website called Does the Dog Die? And it talks about
That's great.
It's every single movie. It's like, well, here are the themes, here's the content, here's the jump scares. Like it can, like you're gonna before any movie we watch together, you're gonna be like, okay, all right, where's the dog die? Where's the jump?
I like have a stopwatch and I'm like, okay, 33 minutes in and 30. All right, okay, I have to go to the bathroom, guys. I'll be right back.
Or look away.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Okay.
I would give this movie a 9. I think that every performance is fantastic. Reading about the movie about Jordan Peele's influences, it was like Rosemary's Baby.
The Shining was a big one for him.
The Shining. I was surprised that Invasion of the Body Snatchers wasn't one of them, because that was a story about like, you know, people not recognizing you, people being invasive into your body. Like that was kind of interesting for me, looking and being like, oh, that's interesting. I just feel like there's a lot that you can pick up from this movie.
Yeah.
I think the performances are great. I think the script is great. The ending is really great. I still haven't seen Nope. I did see Us. He made Us. Us is pretty good. I still need to see Nope. I've heard really good things, but
that's the extraterrestrial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Yeah.
But I really like him as a director because he does original content, and B, he loves horror. Like there are documentaries where he talks about horror. He's like, oh, it's my favorite genre. And I'm like, you're just like me. It's just like, I just want to talk horror movies with him. I just want to like have him be like, I just want to be like, all right, so what used to scare you as a kid? What horror movies do you like? Let me take some notes.
So let me ask you a question. So you rated it a 9 out of 10.
Yes.
What if it was just horror franchise? Is it a 10 out of 10? Like out of all, just like if you were to just rate horror movies, like no other movie, just horror movies, where would you say, is it like in your top 3 of all horror movies of all time?
Of my favorites?
Yeah.
I think the themes and everything is really heavy. So if we were just talking like just horror, I'd probably give it like an 8.
Oh, it's less. Okay.
Well, just because it's such a heavy movie that it's kind of like what you said. Like, I'm not gonna just pop it in and be like, all right, time to watch Get Out. Like,
So yeah, but I thought that was just me because I feel like you do that with horror movies.
no, that's a good point. Yeah, I do that.
So okay, so let me. There's a question behind the question. So give me an example of a horror movie that is a 10.
I, for myself personally, I'd say Halloween is a 10.
Like the very first one.
The very first one. It really kicked everything off. And Jordan Peele mentioned like he wanted something bad to happen in suburbia, so he mentioned Halloween. And so I would give Halloween a 10. We're also reviewing that this month. I'm also excited about next week because next week we're reviewing Scream, which I almost give that a 10.
Oh,
like
okay.
There's some movies coming up this month that I love, and I'm excited to talk about. And we'll have our buddy Anthony on for some of those movies, so that Anthony and I can talk horror movies.
I'm gonna be sick the next couple of weeks to not be able to. Yeah, I'm excited because it's not something I've ever done before.
No, it's new.
So yeah, that's really the plan for the rest of October is kind of a horror fest. So if you're not a big horror fan, just trug through it with me because we are in this together.
We also have a back catalog of Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We got Dumb and Dumber. We got a bunch of comedies. So you can just sort of skip this month if you want.
Well, yeah, this is going to be great. We have more guests on this month. Yeah, pretty much all horror. But yeah, Get Out.
Get Out was great. Highly recommended. If you haven't seen it and you've already watched through this, I'm sorry. But it's a great movie.
7 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Okay, we will see you next week
with a Scream.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Hallelujah.